You guys are lifesavers.
That's what you think.
In action.
The Walking Dead Dead City, exclusively on AMC and AMC+.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News at 90. The city of Minneapolis mourning following the targeted shooting at a Catholic church this week. And new details are coming to light about the 2 children killed and other victims who were injured. An 8-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl have been identified by their parents as Fletcher Merkel and Harper Moisky. A parent of another child spoke about the moment he found his daughter safe.
When I hugged her, she said that she was worried that I got shot. And for a 4-year-old to have that kind of thought, it's horrible.
Friday marks 20 years since Hurricane Katrina slammed the Gulf Coast, killing more than 1,400 people in 5 states. New Orleans is commemorating the anniversary with memorials, performances, and a parade to honor those impacted. Spectrum News spoke to an Air Force veteran who was among the first to respond, saying the city was unrecognizable.
We were not prepared for what we saw. We were just like, wow, this is apocalyptic.
The TSA expects Friday will be the busiest travel day for flyers getting away for the Labor Day weekend. The agency expected more than 17 million people at its checkpoints through Wednesday as flyers make the most out of the last days of summer travel in 2025. And that is your Spectrum News in 90.
Welcome to The Big Deal. I'm Errol Lewis, national political anchor at Spectrum News. This program focuses on the future of our country and its people. This week, the big deal is President Trump's decision to fire 2 top government officials, sparking a political and legal backlash. Trump has called for the firing of the director of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, as well as a member of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. The president has accused Lisa Cook, the first black woman ever to serve as a Fed governor, of committing mortgage fraud, but no fraud has been proved, and Cook has filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration, arguing that her firing is, quote, unprecedented and illegal. Here's what the president said earlier this week about his decision.
No, she seems to have had an infraction, and she can't have an infraction, especially that infraction, because she's in charge of, if you think about it, mortgages, and we need people that are 100% above board, and it doesn't seem like she was.
Joining me now with more are 2 top political analysts. Holly Gregory is a political anchor for Spectrum Bay News 9 in Tampa, Florida. Taylor Populares covers the Trump administration for Spectrum News, and he joins us now from outside the White House. And Holly, there was a hearing on Friday, but no decision about whether Lisa Cook can remain a governor of the Federal Reserve Board as her lawsuit plays out. But this is at least partly a fight over who should control the central bank and, frankly, who should control key interest rates, isn't it?
Oh, I think it clearly is, and certainly there's no doubt there's a part of a power play here by President Trump. He would love to remake the Fed if he could. He has made no secret about the fact that he is fed up, out of patience with the Fed and Chairman Jerome Powell over interest rate cuts. He thinks that a cut was justified a long time ago and it would turbocharge the economy. Now, Powell, for his part, has argued that he wants to see what happens with tariffs and what that does to inflation. And to his point, there was a report out just today that shows, those higher prices are sticking around. They're stubborn. So 2 things can be true at once, though, here, Errol. Trump wants more control over the Fed, and maybe there is some wrongdoing by Lisa Cook on mortgages. We don't know. She hasn't been criminally charged. She'll have due process. But what's going to be pivotal is what happens ultimately with her lawsuit, because the Supreme Court gave Trump wide-ranging power to fire who he wants in the executive branch. But the Fed is designed to be at least quasi-independent, so it's sheltered from political pressure on economic policy. So we'll have to see what the courts ultimately decide here, and what if this ends up back at the Supreme Court and they'll decide once or for all, does a president have the right to fire a Fed chair and the governors? And I think that's a legal battle that the president is itching to have here.
Okay, now Taylor, the CDC director who was fired, Susan Monarez, held the title for less than a month, and her firing led to the resignation of 4 senior officials at the agency, including some scientists who are in charge of really important stuff like immunizations and vaccines and surveillance to prevent another pandemic. And from what I understand, Ms. Monarez was handpicked by RFK Jr., the Secretary of Health and Human Services. So what led to this falling out and this wave of firings?
So as we're starting to learn more about this conflict, it appears that Susan Monarez, despite, as you pointed out, being picked by Secretary Kennedy, that they didn't align when it came to this fairly sensitive topic of vaccines. And I say it's sensitive because Secretary Kennedy is famously a vaccine skeptic. And though throughout his confirmation process to become the Secretary of Health and Human Services, he insisted, even to skeptical Republican senators, that he would not make drastic changes to how the CDC and overall HHS handled vaccines. That's exactly what we've seen over the last few weeks, especially in terms of vaccine advisory boards being put away, changes to the coronavirus vaccine and who's mandated or who will have access to take it. And it seems that Monarez, through her attorneys, has indicated that she was uncomfortable with some of the things that Kennedy wanted her to do moving forward. So she decided that, she was insisting that she wasn't going to go forward with them, and then she appeared to be pushed out. The CDC right now is in a really fragile state, but President Trump himself has publicly said, as well as many of his administration officials, that he couldn't be happier with the work Secretary Kennedy is doing. So it appears that Kennedy has the upper hand in this right now. Okay, and now Holly, moving from the White House, where Taylor is, to where you are in Florida. I wanted to follow up on a story we did a few weeks ago. Alligator Alcatraz, that federal immigration detention center in the Everglades, has been ordered closed by a judge. It's currently being emptied out. My understanding is that the state of Florida invested more than $200 million to create the facility. Is the state going to be on the hook for that money now?
Yeah, about $245 million and counting, because they still have to pay to dismantle it per that judge's order. Now, Governor Ron DeSantis has said all along that the state will be reimbursed by the federal government for this, but as of this point, Florida taxpayers have been footing the bill here. And this whole saga has been remarkable to watch. It's happened so quickly. It's been up for 2 months now, and the state saw that they were not going to get a favorable ruling on this environmental lawsuit. They saw the writing on the wall, and it was going to be shut down. So in preparation for that a few weeks ago, the governor announced that they were opening what was a vacant prison in North Florida next to an airport. They're calling it Deportation Depot. And it really begs the question, wait a minute, if we had a vacant prison next to an airport all along, why did we spend $245 million to open up a tent city for 4,000 people in the middle of, the most environmentally sensitive lands on the planet? But as of right now, they are moving forward with shutting it down. So it's been up and running for about 2 months, Errol, and that comes down to about $4 million a day at this point. They're still appealing to try and be able to keep it open, but to answer your question, as of this moment, Florida taxpayers are paying that bill, and we'll see if the federal government does reimburse.
Okay, and now Taylor, as we talked about last week, President Trump is considering deploying the National Guard to Democratic-run cities, including Chicago and New York, to fight crime. But if we take a look at this chart, we're going to put it on the screen there, it shows that homicide rates have actually been on the decline in most big cities. More than a dozen Democratic governors have condemned the president's plan. What does the law say about whether or not he can actually do this, sort of put troops on the streets in these cities against the leadership's will?
So we have some reference points in what happened in Los Angeles a few months ago, where President Trump did deploy both the National Guard and U.S. Marines against Governor Gavin Newsom's wishes there. And we saw that those troops did end up being able to stay there. They were allowed to stay there, and there were court battles associated with it. And then they eventually were taken away once the Trump administration declared that, mission accomplished. We actually, a short time ago here at the White House, heard from Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff. He said specifically about Chicago that there was no update to share, but then he spoke more broadly and said a lot of this has to do with immigration policy from the Trump administration's view, and that they're primarily targeting Democratic-led cities because those cities have had what's called sanctuary city policies to protect people from federal immigration enforcement. And Stephen Miller claimed that he feels the president has broad authority to send the National Guard in anywhere he pleases if he feels that federal immigration rules are not being followed and enforced. But as you alluded to, a lot of these Democratic governors say they will go to court immediately to fight that, especially if they're not agreeing with the National Guard showing up in their own city.
Okay. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you, Holly. Both have a great holiday weekend. We're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll examine why the nation's immigration court system could be falling apart as caseloads continue to soar. That's next on The Big Deal.
Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Bring it to the party. Bring it to the top. Bring it to the party. Never gonna stop.
Enjoy. Unwind. Connect. With Spectrum TV On Demand. From the latest hit movies you've been waiting to watch to your favorite comfort shows and more, all available instantly for you to stream. Create the all-around entertainment experience you've always wanted with Spectrum TV On Demand. Browse over 80,000 on-demand titles today.
Being a cowboy, well, I don't know anything different. I had a very successful career. Life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally. And then I got hurt. I dug into mental health. I wanted to be better as a person. I start my day with a workout. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Watching The Big Deal. After firing dozens of immigration judges, the Federal Department of Justice announced that it is loosening requirements to hire more temporary immigration judges amid a massive backlog in cases. The need for judges is urgent. The union who represents immigration judges has reported that close to 15% of them have accepted buyouts or not been renewed or been fired by the Trump administration. Spectrum News reporter Eric Feldman spoke to one of those fired judges who says that she fears the immigration court system is being set up to fail.
New York City has become one of the epicenters for the debate that has captured the country.
Freedom all now!
immigration and the rise in deportations.
I'll say it again, sanctuary cities are sanctuaries for criminals.
But the voices we rarely hear from, the hundreds of people hired to decide the nearly 4 million pending immigration cases, the judges.
It's been pretty brutal since January.
Until a few weeks ago, Jennifer Payton was the supervisory judge for Chicago's immigration courts.
I don't know why I was fired, but I do know why I wasn't fired. I wasn't fired for cause.
She got an email while she was on vacation July 3rd that she was done. The Department of Justice told New York One it does not discuss personnel matters. In September 2024, the total number of immigration judges was 735, according to the federal government. This chart from the Department of Justice indicates this summer there were 685 judges, but that number may actually be significantly lower. There are only 608 judges with active online hearing rooms, which Payton says is a requirement for judges. And the National Association of Immigration Judges says it has tracked more than 100 who have either left or been let go since President Trump's inauguration.
If you have a 3.8 million backlog, should you fire 100 judges since January?
Another former immigration judge in the Northeast who was fired this year spoke to New York One in a phone call, but asked us not to use her name as she feared additional professional consequences. She said her backlog of hearings in recent months had gone from 1 month long to as far as 2027. According to a breakdown from the American Immigration Council, the recently passed federal budget bill provides $170 billion in additional funding to immigration and border enforcement. Funding for detention capacity, border wall and checkpoint upgrades, and enforcement and removal account for $126.5 billion, or about 75%. For prosecutions of non-citizens, including for immigration judges, $3.3 billion, or just under 2%.
Well, what does that tell you about the importance that this administration places on the judges hearing these applications?
That's part of the problem. The number of pending immigration cases hasn't helped either. Federal data collected by the organization TRAC indicates the backlog has been increasing substantially each of the last 3 presidents. It went from just over 344,000 to 500,000 during President Obama's second term, up to 1.26 million at the end of the first Trump administration, and up to 3.7 million by the end of the Biden presidency. So a bigger backlog, fewer judges, and more enforcement is making it harder in the courts, according to former judges New York One has consulted with. And while the budget bill allows for the number of judges to go up to 800, it's not clear how quickly judges will be hired.
I fear that due process is being violated and that justice is being kicked to the curb.
Payton says part of that comes from what she says has been a pressure campaign from the Trump administration on specific cases. New York One's cameras have documented the current deportation process at the federal courthouse at 26 Federal Plaza in Lower Manhattan. It's where undocumented people have their immigration cases dismissed and are often immediately taken into ICE custody inside the courthouse, a legal move called expedited removal that has been utilized by the Trump administration to detain people who illegally entered the United States within the past 2 years.
Sir, let's go. Sir, Sir.
One immigration lawyer tells New York One it nearly guarantees they end up deported.
There's a baby. There's a baby.
That fired immigration judge in the Northeast says she never felt pressure from the Trump administration to dismiss cases to trigger that expedited removal process. But Payton says her judges felt differently because of what she received in late May.
I think that email was definitely pressure.
She's referring to this May 30th email, which says motions to dismiss may be made orally and decided from the bench, that a 10-day response period is not required. Both could move these cases faster.
I felt the pressure that this was an email using the words may, but really felt like a should.
The Department of Justice declined to answer New York One's questions about this email, and now she's planning to sue the Trump administration for her firing.
Eric Feldman joins me now with more on all of this, and walk us through what the Justice Department is doing to try and bring more immigration judges online.
So they announced yesterday a new rule where they are going to be allowing temporary immigration judges to be hired, and they cited the backlog that we have been seeing for many, many years. The concern that the union brought up, they said, look, if you're hiring qualified people, we're all for it, but their concern is, who are you going to be bringing in? They're worried it may not be people who are qualified to be immigration judges. And the question I have is, if you just let go of all these immigration judges, you're citing the backlog problems. Why are you now rushing to hire all these temporary judges? Should you have maybe not fired all those people?
Sure. And if the number is down as far as you've sort of reported on, even in a best case scenario, if they got it back up to 800, that's still more than 4,600 cases per judge.
Yeah, and that's simply not doable. I mean, judges that I've talked to say that on average they hear 3 cases a day. So the more that the backlog grows, it's not like they can just hear more cases. They only have time for 3 hearings every day.
Did any of the fired judges tell you that they were under pressure to rule a certain way in their cases?
As former Judge Payton talked about in the piece, she felt like this letter that came out in May from the Justice Department was some pressure to try to move cases faster. She said the other issue that she heard from some of the judges that reported to her in Chicago is that when you see all these other people being fired or let go or taking buyouts, that's adding pressure to them as well. They feel like underhandedly maybe the administration is saying, look, if you don't follow what we want, you may be let go next.
And so if we look at the overall budget, it was really quite striking in the graphic that you had that over $170 billion for, enforcement and detention centers and so forth, and then only a couple of $1 billion, meaning less than, 3% for the actual immigration judges to sort of adjudicate all of this. Is it fair to say that the real policy here is sort of walls and deportation as opposed to figuring out people's cases?
I mean, it seems like that's been the focus from the Trump administration, from the campaign to now. This is what they've been talking about, getting more people out of the country. But when you talk to immigration experts and attorneys, what they'll say is that this is a complicated problem that has been decades not solved correctly, and the backlog of cases is evidence of that.
Okay, thank you, Eric Feldman. Great reporting. We are not done just yet. Coming up next, we will talk about next year's special election to fill Vice President J.D. Vance's U.S. Senate seat. Stay with The Big Deal.
The stories that touch our border affect us all. That's why at Spectrum News Plus, we don't just cover these communities. Our dedicated reporting team also calls them home. That perspective allows us to take an in-depth look, going beyond the politics, to see the impact on people's lives and what it means for you and your community. Balanced border coverage that tells the full story here on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
Spectrum with Paramount Plus is the entertainment destination.
You're gonna love this.
Getting oil out of the ground is the most dangerous job in the world.
It's so good to see you.
Come on!
Right now, I am in first gear. Would you like to see me shift to 6?
Stream a mountain of the entertainment you love on Paramount Plus. Included in Spectrum TV Select plans at no extra cost.
What are you doing in there?
What's that?
I wouldn't do that. What are you doing? What are you looking for?
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
You're watching The Big Deal. Earlier this month, we told you about an important U.S. Senate contest heating up in North Carolina. It's one of the key races that we'll be tracking ahead of next year's midterm elections as Republicans seek to maintain control of both the House and the Senate. Roughly 1/3 of the 100 members of the Senate will be up for election in 2026. But in Ohio, it will be a special election to determine who will fill the vacancy created when J.D. Vance became vice president. The seat is currently held by Republican John Husted, who was appointed in January. He's set to face former Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown, who was voted out of office just last year, but is launching a comeback bid. Joining me now with more on this race is Curtis Jackson, a political anchor for Spectrum News 1 in Columbus, Ohio. Great to see you, my friend. And Curtis, Sherrod Brown has raised millions of dollars since announcing earlier this month, but his new Senate campaign is not even a full year since he lost his Senate seat to Bernie Moreno just last November. I want to show a map of Ohio and how that race turned out. As an outsider, it looks like 6 Democratic cities, including Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland, in a sea of rural red. Is that pretty much the lay of the land? And if so,
absolutely.
Why does Sherrod Brown think he's going to have a better chance this time around?
I think chief among the reasons is that Donald Trump isn't at the top of the ballot for this one. I think he thinks that gives him a little bit of an advantage. Trump did win the state by 11 or so points, and Brown only lost by 3.6, I think, if I added up right. And so that gives him some sort of a lane there. I think another reason that he thinks he's going to be more successful this time around has to do with Trump fatigue. I think he's gambling, and a lot of other Democrats are gambling, that as the One Big Beautiful Bill's policies get implemented, a bill that is not very popular, according to polls, as those policies start to bear some fruit and people start to see what they're getting, there could be some sort of backlash there. And I think that's what Brown and so many other Democrats are counting on.
Okay. Now, Donald Trump has already endorsed the Republican incumbent. What do we need to know about him?
John Husted served as lieutenant governor under Governor Mike DeWine before he was appointed to fill out the rest of J.D. Vance's term, or at least the year or so of it. He is someone who has been sort of the governor's point person when it comes to attracting businesses to the state. He's also someone who has statewide electoral experience. He served as Secretary of State for 2 terms before joining Governor DeWine on the gubernatorial ticket in 2018. And so he is not like a politician. Huston's campaign points out that Brown has faced before. Brown, of course, faced Bernie Moreno, a car dealership owner, in the last race in 2024. He faced another car dealership owner when he was running for re-election in the previous election cycle. This is going to be the first time that he's going to take on someone who has statewide electoral experience and some name recognition.
Okay, and then what issues are expected to dominate this race?
Again, I think a lot of these things are going to be sort of associated with the One Big Beautiful Bill. I think especially the Medicaid component of that. Ohio has roughly 1.5 million people on Medicaid and Medicaid expansion. As this bill sort of takes effect and they could see some people drop from the rolls, that's going to be an issue there. And I think the other issue, that's sort of a deja vu here, is inflation. I think that's going to be an issue for a lot of these candidates. We're seeing a rise in inflation. Core inflation is at 3%. Some companies, including Hormel and Walmart and Ace Hardware, announcing that they foresee price raises coming in the 3rd and 4th quarters at least. So I think as a lot of people still sort of dealing with that fatigue associated with the inflation that we saw in the presidential election cycle are now going to see that again. You add that to some of the more unpopular components of the One Big Beautiful Bill, and there could be some running room there for Democrats.
Okay, great insight out of the heartland as usual. Thanks very much, Curtis. And thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned to your local Spectrum station.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
Watch this. I can make it hotter, I can make it colder. Hotter, colder. From my phone. Smart birdhouse. Yes. Even the birds have Spectrum Wi-Fi. Who likes treats? You do. That's right, yes you do.
Very impressive, son.
And one more.
Nice.
Can I change colors?
Launch party mode. Yeah.
It's all about connecting with the fastest, most reliable internet from Spectrum.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app. Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on